I think a lot of us think confidence is like, I'll be confident when I lose a lot of weight. Like that's what we still, even though we're trying to push back against it, we're still attributing it. And it's like, no, it's being confident right now. It's nothing you need to work towards. It's something you need to be actively working on.
Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Hardy, a mom of two on a mission to help moms everywhere feel less alone. This is not a parenting podcast. Instead, it's a space for pushing back against societal expectations of perfection and embracing self-compassion in your motherhood journey. Let's get into it. I am really looking forward to this episode. This is something that is really relevant to a lot of women. We're going to be talking about body confidence. So many of us have grown up in diet culture. We have become mothers, and then we are thrown into bounce back culture. And I think it's safe to say that so many of us feel less than confident about our bodies. And that can be something that maybe is from prior to becoming a mom. I know for me that's something I've always really struggled with, honestly. But becoming a mom can really change that relationship we have with our bodies for a lot of reasons. And with it being summer and the weather is warm, we might be wearing different clothes that don't hide our bodies as much as, just naturally in the winter when we're covered up. Those complex feelings we might feel about our bodies could be amplified. So today's guest is Lindsay Tompkins. She's a body confidence and self-love coach. She's also a heels dance entrepreneur, and she's also the mom to a 2-year-old. And we are going to deep dive on a conversation on body confidence in postpartum and beyond, and really get into what it actually means to feel confident in our own bodies and what cultural factors we're up against in that pursuit. So Lindsay, welcome to the podcast. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, so I have been a confidence coach for a number of years. I have my coaching certification, but I own a heels dance performance business. So it is total beginner all the way to advanced dancers. And we teach them in 10-week sessions, choreography that they put on stage for a show. I have grown up a dancer. I competitively danced. I had an agent. I professionally danced. So dance has always been a really big part of my life and also my relationship with my body. It's definitely ebbed and flowed because of dance. I would say as a younger person, dance more negatively affected my body image. And so what I do now with my business, Strut Niagara, is helping people reclaim the joy of dance and be able to use it as a way to experience joy of movement and to build that confidence. I always say it's a confidence program that uses dance as a modality versus just a dance program.
I love that. I grew up dancing as well. And you saying that impacted your body confidence. And as a younger dancer, maybe not for the best. I can relate to that so much. I look back on pictures of being a competitive dancer and thinking I thought so negatively about my body. And I look back on pictures, I'm like, what was going on? But I think that is something probably others can relate to as well. And I also recently just started taking a pole fitness class where we do kind of the sexy movement. It's been really hard. I have really tested my strength, but
going hard.
It's really hard. But doing something where I get to move and I'm a beginner, but I'm bringing some of those the movement that I used to do growing up has been really fun and a really fun way to play with confidence in myself. So I just I'm so excited to just be sitting down and having this conversation with you at this moment in time. When you think about what it means to be confident in your own body, what does that mean to you? I think that's such a foreign concept to so many of us. What does that even feel like or look like?
Yeah, I think so many of us, when we try to think about what that would be like, it's either, like you said, it's totally you can't even describe it. You have no concept of what that might feel like. Or I feel like we really idolize it or idealize it. And we put it up on this really high pedestal of, if I was just confident, everything would be easy. I would feel so great and everything got my job would be amazing. With my marriage, it would be amazing. From fashion to everything. We just feel like there's this ultimate end goal that we're reaching to. And none of us are ever going to get there because it does not exist. Confidence has to exist in real time when we are living in a world that has systemic problems and issues when it comes to our bodies, whether it is racism, diet culture, rape culture, etc. We have all these different messaging being pointed at us, especially right now. We are somehow time warped back into the 2000s where heroin chic is the look, jeans are, went from high rise to low rise again. And we're seeing these different styles that, especially those of us that are like millennial moms, we're feeling triggered and uncomfortable by. So for me, what confidence is like not this ideal look or feeling, it's an action. It is like happening in the present moment. And it is things that we do in spite of everything else and all the messaging. I read a quote the other day on Instagram and it was like, something along the lines of brave should feel like fear if you're doing it right. That was just such a like mind shifting quote for me to read because it's like, yes, like when I am being brave, when I am being my most confident self, which I truly believe is my most authentic self, that's going to feel vulnerable. Like when you are being your most you're feeling exposed because you're leaving yourself open to be judged by other people, whether it's I want to wear what I want to wear, or I want to join a heels dance program and I don't care what my friends and family say, or I'm going to apply for that job or quit my job and take a different career. And it's really being able to say, like, I'm brave enough to try to take small actionable steps to be my most authentic self, despite what the world wants me to do. Because yeah, this idea of confidence and what we think, we're always going to feel like we're failing towards it if we're not keeping things realistic for ourselves. No matter how much we want to, we can't escape diet culture. We can't escape like messaging and AI and filters and all these other things. And so we have to learn to just like be brave and be confident and courageous in spite of it and be gentle with ourselves, just small steps. It's not being perfect. Again, I think a lot of us think confidence is like, I'll be confident when I lose a lot of weight. Like that's what we still, even though we're trying to push back against it, we're still attributing it. And it's like, no, it's being confident right now. It's nothing you need to work towards. It's something you need to be actively working on.
All of that. I'm like, yes. And the way you said that, if it's not a goal to get to, I've heard that said in different ways, but something about the way you said it, I'm like, that makes so much sense that this isn't some like point we're going to get to where we're confident. And I think there's like so much grace in that because when you wake up and have a day where you're like, oh my God, none of my clothes fit. I just want to like curl up in a ball and cry because my relationship with my body right now is so uncomfortable. That doesn't take you back to a place of like, I'm failing at this confidence thing because you can wake up the next day and feel differently.
Yes. And, I try to do like a lot of self-reflection on and get curious with myself when I'm having like those down days. And it's like, okay, if nothing existed, because I will even sometimes going to the doctors, if I have like a doctor's appointment or just anything, I went to the chiropractors this week and felt this way. And I woke up and I was having like a bit of a body image day. And for whatever reason in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, but like I have to look good for the chiropractor. Like we have this like internal dialogue of wanting to be accepted by other people, which is totally intrinsic to our evolution because safety comes in numbers, right? Like when we think about us as animals, like being out there in the wild on our own leaves you vulnerable and exposed. It's why we look for like-minded people. And so I understand how easy it is to slip into that, but I really try to like get curious with myself of if I wasn't seeing somebody today, if I wasn't afraid to run into, someone I know at Walmart, if I, wasn't putting myself out there, how much would my body bother me? Yeah, maybe these jeans feel uncomfortable today. So like, let me wear sweatpants. And a lot of the time it's like, I feel confident when I'm just at home with my son because he doesn't have expectations on me. He's not thinking like, you'd be such a better mom if you were thinner, if you were hotter, like, you were like sexier for my dad or any of these things. And it's just like truly about enjoying me. And so I really try to take that out into the world as best as I can.
That's something that's really interesting because you're saying that and I'm like, it's the same when you go out in the world. Most people don't care what you look like. And so like embracing that.
They don't even notice you.
Right. But then there's also the fact that there are people who are judgmental and say things. I mean, I don't know. I think about like when you're with with someone and they make a comment about, oh, she shouldn't be wearing that. And you hear it, even if it's not about you, you hear it. And we get that message a lot. So it's kind of this like, we have to know that that has nothing to do with us, I guess, like other people's thoughts and opinions. That can be really hard. And I think with social media, but then also like prior to social media, like the magazines we saw growing up, the magazines that our parents saw growing up, right? Like we live in a media world where we're getting these messages of what we're supposed to look like in our faces. And those images that we see so often are not even what the models look like. It's just like made up figures. But it's kind of beyond the point is like, we just are so inundated with it that it is a lot of work to like separate ourselves from all of that. But knowing that like, it doesn't actually matter what other people think, like, except for it mattering to us, right?
Yeah. And like we were saying earlier, like that's the ideal, right? Like to just like walk out of your home and be like, I don't give a fuck what you have to say about me. And, you know, a coach told me like years ago, like you spot it, you got it. People that see that in you, it's like you were saying, it's your own thing. Like we're just a mirror for people. And again, I think when we talk about confidence in this way and like body image in this way, it's so important. But again, we always need to, and what I feel like is often missing from conversations is like the realist component of it of, yes, this would be like amazing, but also this is really hard for this to happen. Like to just expect that people are going to go like, I don't care at all what people say. I saw a funny quote on Instagram the other day being like, old people will tell you to take your elbows off the table because it's disrespectful and rude, but then tell you you look fatter than usual. It's like, it's so true. And yeah, we're human beings. And like, I think that we have to just also accept that like, it's okay to hear someone make a comment of like, should you be wearing that? Should you be eating that? And let yourself be like, that sucks. And like, that really hurt my feelings. And I feel uncomfortable. And I really hate that, like, this is how the world thinks. I hate how, you know, people feel this way, but I'm going to do like my absolute best to just be extra kind to myself today, whether that's like how I speak about myself or saying to myself, like, not my circus, not my monkeys, like, this is your problem, not my own. And yeah, I just think that we have to be way more realistic with ourselves. Like, it's always going to be a challenge. The most confident people that we think are the most confident people or that teach confidence even have off days because we live in a real world that we can't escape.
So I want to talk a little bit about the world that we live in, because I think especially for millennials, we have grown up in like diet culture to the max. I mean, I don't know, Slim Fast was like on the kitchen table as little kids, you know,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like huge. And then we now exist as mothers in a world where we get to see like all the bounce back moms, right? Like it's such a part of what we're exposed to, but it's also a part of what others are exposed to. So when you're saying all of that, I'm thinking like, those messages people might be passing along to you a lot of times aren't even their messages, right?
Yeah, they're victims of it too. Becoming a mom and going to therapy, like literally as soon as I feel like I popped my son out, it was like, oh, like I had this like instant empathy for my mom. I did a lot of therapy pre-pregnancy about my body image. And a lot of the times I talked about my mom because, you know, my mom, which is like the boomers, their generation was like really that like first generation to get hit hard with toxic diet culture. Like you said, like you woke up and you saw Slim Fast, Jenny Craig, like besties, we know her. I did Bernstein's like as a 16-year-old who weighed like 115 pounds, like Atkins, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, you were just exposed to everything because our mom's generation, they were like really that first generation of women that had to also be working. They needed double income houses. So they were expected to do so much to continue to be the homemaker that their moms were, but also be working like their dads were and still be thin and still be able to make all this happen. And food became more about convenience. It wasn't like, let me put in a roast in the morning and let it simmer all day because you were at the office, you were at your job. And so things became about convenience, which meant that people were gaining more weight. They had like less time to exercise. And so they were targeted. And a lot of that spilled onto us as children, whether it was like things that our moms said to us or what we watched them do. And I had so much resentment for a really long time with my mom. And then just really realizing, and I think this too goes into confidence of like being an informed person and like really trying to educate yourself on diet culture, on on just like the industry in general, how it's marketed. Diets are meant to fail because it's a money industry. And I think as a parent too, you just are trying to do your best. I really think that every single person is not every single person, but I think most people operate with their best intentions. And I see that now with my mom. And like you were saying, it's like, even when we're like, oh, well, that's so and so's opinion. And it's like, but is it like, or are we all just victim to this systemic problem and messaging? And we just all need to be kind to each other and try to give each other a little bit of grace. And I see the human in my mom so much now, and choices that I make for my son. Like, you know, he may sit in therapy one day and be like my mother, but you're just trying to do better than who was before you. And unfortunately, the body relationship is a big one. And I hope that the best I can do for my son is try to talk about it a lot less and just exist. Like, if they're not even conversations, so you just, this is my body and I'm existing in it right now.
And knowing what a difference that is from what we were exposed to, like our whole generation, because it just really was everywhere. I mean, like you couldn't avoid conversations about bodies not being small enough, bodies not being curvy enough, bodies not being whatever enough.
Yeah.
And if we can just work to like minimize that coming out, which comes from like working on that internally with us, right? Working on healing that relationship with our bodies. Like, that's a huge burden we're taking off of the next generation. And I think we do see it happening. Like, I think the change is happening.
I think so too. I think, you know, despite like some of the things like that we see now, like still like that 2000s bodies back, you know, on TikTok, you see legging legs, like it's like what is this, Tumblr now? Like, but I think that Gen Z and whatever is after it, I forget what they're called, Alpha or Gen Alpha. I don't know. I think that they're like some of the most authentic people in many ways. Like, it's still, they're still going to be led. They're still going to be, you know, like influenced by what they're seeing, especially on social media. But just like seeing the amount of like kids that are just being themselves and are so much more open to that, I think is like really cool.
Yeah, it's really like exciting to know that the things that we dealt with may not be things that they have to deal with.
Yeah, but diet culture, that's going to try so hard.
I know, it is. It
is.
They're
going to put in so much effort. And that's what we just have to remember, that like...
Yeah. And I mean, we are seeing it. We are seeing with Ozempic and all these conversations that it's like ain't everyone's business. And like it does exist. So I don't want to minimize that. But I think, like in the home, we can do better.
Yeah.
And I think we are more aware just across our generation. You know, there's the change. So
100%. And I think, like I said, too, it's about like being informed about how the like diet culture and diet industry operates. And then also just like informing ourselves like more about health. Like, even I have tendonitis right now in my knee, and it's been like really bothering me. And yesterday I was having kind of a hard day about it, and I was feeling just a little bit insecure about my body. And I said to my husband, like, I need to lose weight. Like, it's like hurting my knee. And then I was like, but my other knee is fine. So like, is it weight, or is it just my knee hurts? And like the lowest hanging fruit to pick on is, well, I must be too heavy, and that's why like my right knee hurts. It's like, well, no, honey, you got a left knee too, and she's good. Like, so we're so quick to blame weight, or to go like, oh, like I'm going to take something like Ozempic and, you know, like lose a bunch of weight. And I'm not anti-weight loss, because I understand that like we live in like a world that like it's really, really tough. But the more I inform myself about health, the way more I disconnect weight. Weight is like such an irrelevant thing to me. It's like, let me go do my blood work and change my hormones. Like, am I having a lot of like negative body image days because suddenly all my jeans aren't fitting? Yes, I may have gained weight. And if I have, then like, let's go buy new jeans. But if it's up and down, well, am I experiencing some inflammation? Do I have something going on with my thyroid? Is like my PCOS acting up? I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and I'm, you know, constantly learning foods that help with those symptoms. And it's like, we're doing ourselves a disservice by only ever looking at our weight and like not going deeper into that and looking at like, what are the other things that are going on? Like, if you wake up with a shitty body image day, like, is it your body, or do you have brain fog? Did you get enough sleep? Is your cortisol high. Like there's so many other things. And we're just like, let me just have another iced coffee and put on my sweatpants and cry and hope tomorrow I wake up thinner because I starved myself today. And it's like, we are just, every part of our hormones, blood sugar, all these things are going haywire because we are not informing ourselves on the way that our bodies actually work. And the more that you learn about your body, I think the stronger your connection to it. Like that really, like segueing a bit into like being a mom and postpartum. It's funny, I've experienced like a little bit different. I think I still like feel pressure sometimes for bounce back. And it's just wild the amount of marketing that I see, even people that reach out to me being like, oh, now that you're postpartum, like, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to do this? But seeing like the power of my body, like growing an actual human being and birthing that human being, and I'm still breastfeeding my son, and just even that relationship with my body, I'm closer to it. You have to develop that love. Like I hate when I saw this Instagram or TikTok video and it was this woman saying, I hate body positivity because we're always just trying to like love on our body. But you know what? Sometimes I think you need to get angry and you do need to hate it to make change, to feel like almost like when you hit rock bottom. And I'm like, when was the last time that you did something thoughtful or intentional or generous to somebody in your life you hated? No, who do you give your shirt off your back to? People you love. Who do you go above and beyond for? People you love. That's the exact same with our bodies. Like if we're going to wake up and hate our bodies every day, do you think that you're going to book that doctor's appointment to get your blood tested? Do you think that you're going to go on that bike with your kid and go on a bike ride or put on that swimsuit at the beach? Like, absolutely not. Because we don't put in that effort to like better people that we hate. We distance ourselves from it. And we continue to distance ourselves from building that confidence because we're not intentionally saying, like, let me be kind to you and let me love you. And it's okay that you're tired today because like you're a mom and like it is completely exhausting just to have more of that gentleness for ourselves and to like take real, genuine care.
Yeah, I mean, all of that. I'm thinking of like times where I've really hated my body and I'm like, yeah, and then you just try not to eat. Like it's
Yeah.
not productive. It's
Yeah.
not nourishing your body. It's not taking care of yourself. It hurts your mental health. It's just like, no, that's not the answer. And I think we've been told for far too long that it is, and it doesn't actually do any good for us. So,
No, even in terms of like our weight, it's like the
yeah,
more you starve it, your body's like, all right, we're like, I gotta go into hibernation mode. Like, let's hold this on for the
yeah,
winter. Because it's not, food source isn't consistent. Like, we have to just, anyone who's listening, like, it doesn't matter what you ate yesterday, you deserve to eat today. It doesn't matter like how big your breakfast was. You deserve to eat at lunch. You deserve to eat for supper and to have snacks throughout the day and to nourish your body. Like that's literally our job, is to stay alive, do the things that keep you alive.
yeah, it's how it works. I'm wondering if there's anything. I know you've kind of spoken to some like health issues you've had with PCOS. And then I know even when you were pregnant with hyperemesis,
Yeah.
how has that impacted your relationship with your body? Those complexities added.
Yeah, hugely. And from two different perspectives. On one hand, especially with my PCOS and even more so with my hyperemesis, which was any moms listening who have had a hyperemesis, like I see you, you are a warrior, like you are a survivor. It is like, it's no joke. I felt betrayed by my body. Like, with PCOS feeling like, oh, I just feel like a wave of like emotion. But, with like PCOS, it's like diagnosed infertility. And so I knew that like, it doesn't mean it couldn't have happened, but I mean, my husband and I tried for a long time, like tried, which is impossible because you can barely track your ovulation when you have PCOS. Because even, you don't know when your period's going to come, and ovulation sticks like often don't work because our luteinizing hormone is so different with PCOS. You can get false positives. And, knowing that like I need to go to fertility. So I did have my son through fertility. I used letrozole to help force ovulation. And so during that process, I remember feeling sad. Like I felt grief.
Yeah.
I had to grieve like the trying process, that it wasn't going to just be this like like surprise, or like, oh, me and my husband are just enjoying each other. And then suddenly I realize I'm pregnant. Like it was this like really intentional process that was filled with like tests and procedures and clinics and all these things. And, even for women who have to go further than medicated cycles that are doing IUI and IVF. And a lot of that like romance is taken away from it. We can still, of course, again, like highest self can tell ourselves, this is romantic because this is my partner and I doing anything possible to have this like beautiful human being and it's like bring this baby into the world who's so wanted. But again, we live in the real world and you're still allowed to be like, yes, even though I can see the positive parts of this, I'm still grieving it. And then, to get pregnant and experience hyperemesis, which for people who don't know what hyperemesis gravidarum is, it is an intense pregnancy illness and it is severe nausea and vomiting. For a big chunk of women who get hyperemesis, it lasts like the first trimester. So it's more than morning sickness. But for some people like myself, it lasts the entire 9 months. I lost 55 pounds while I was pregnant because I couldn't keep food down. I was in and out of the hospital on IVs because I was severely dehydrated. It puts the mother and the baby at risk. It's not just morning illness. There's so many other things that can happen because of HG. And I suffered a lot. It was really mentally challenging to go through. It was like debilitating. I'm currently in the fertility process right now for my second child. And it's terrifying. Like, I feel like pregnancy already, we feel like our body, even though it's like a beautiful experience, so many people don't talk about like how you just don't feel like yourself anymore. And
Yeah.
there's parts of you that really, yes, you want your child, but you want your body back and you want to feel like who you were. And so, on one hand, like I was saying, I felt really betrayed by my body. And it really made me feel like my body wasn't working properly. And it affected how I looked at my body. And then on the other hand, I got to see how strong my body was in spite of, I feel like I'm going to cry, in spite of these things. Like, I also ended up getting pups at the end of my pregnancy when I was 32 weeks. It lasted 12 weeks postpartum. And so, yeah, it was about 20 something weeks that I had pups, which is a rash that you get. It's like in your stretch marks, you get like little blisters that pop and it's excruciating. I honestly, when I got pups, I said to my husband, I would take like a whole year of hyperemesis over one more day of pups. It like I would wake up with blood under my nails, standing in the shower screaming at night, like putting cold water on my belly. But I'm like, holy, like I survived that. I survived that. Having Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism has made me have to have a closer relationship with my body because, again, like it's like having a part of you that needs special attention, and that we can either ignore it and continue to suffer consequences and feel like crap, or we have to engage with it and educate ourselves on it and get more informed. And so that part of it has also helped my relationship, oddly enough, with
Yeah.
my body because it's made me understand it. Even when I'm, on one side being like, yes, like it's what it survives, but it's like, oh, like this is why, this is happening. Or like, it's not my fault. Like a lot of times with PCOS and like hypothyroidism, it's a metabolic dysfunction. So it is much more difficult to lose weight for people with PCOS and hypothyroidism than it is for the average person. And so a lot of people say like, oh, PCOS isn't like the lazy girls like disease, or like it's not lazy fat girl syndrome. And some of my friends are like, oh yeah, like, we eat way worse than you do and move way less than you do. And yeah, you exist in a bigger body. And it's like, yes, because I have certain things that impact the way that my body works. And does that feel fair all the time? No. Does that give me insecure body days? Yes, I get frustrated, but it's like accepting that this is what I have going on and how can I best manage my health, but in a way that, yeah, is like loving and honoring myself and you can't hate yourself to change your confidence. But it's helped and hurt. It's been challenging and also rewarding.
I think what's like coming forward for me is just thinking about how we say like all bodies are different. And a lot of times when we're saying that, we're talking about like the physical appearance. We all have different body shapes, all these things. But I think there's such an important point there of like all bodies are also different in the fact that like none of our bodies function perfectly. There's not like some factory reset, you get like the perfect body. And that's even people who maybe appear to be, the quote, perfect body. There's plenty of people who have severe health issues or not severe health issues, right? But just injury, something they were born with, like whatever. All of our bodies function the way they function. And a lot of times it's not in the tip-top perfect, way. Like that's just not how it works. And I think there's something to learn there then about like we can accept that, we can understand that. We can also feel frustration and anger about that if it's something that's impacting us or a loved one, and like that's not fair and it might not be like it totally that's valid, but there's something to learn there about then our appearance and showing up in our own body. It's like they're all different on the inside too, the way they work. So we have to have compassion for ourselves, we have to have compassion for other people and acknowledge that like it's not a simple story, right? There's so much to it and a lot of complex feelings that come along with that.
Yeah, like even when I was pregnant, because I was losing so much weight, I cannot even tell you the amount of people that either knew I had hyperemesis and said, well, at least you're losing weight and hopefully you can keep it off when the baby comes, to people not knowing that I had hyperemesis and like overly complimenting me on my weight loss while I was pregnant. Like, oh my gosh, like you look fantastic. Like, you're just like all belly right now. You're slimming out. Like and it's like, yeah, because I throw up 20 times a day. It's impacting my health and my
This is
teeth.
not healthy.
And yes, just like when we see friends like that have lost a bunch of weight because they're experiencing grief and depression and anxiety, and you should never make comments on someone's body because to your point, we don't know what's going on with it. And I catch myself sometimes too when I see like a friend who's maybe lost a lot of weight, that, frame of mind that I have of that ideology of being in a smaller body means you're more valuable and like better and whatever. That part of my brain like lights up and I'm like, I want to compliment them. And it's hard too, especially if I know that it's something that they have been like kind of working on or something that they wanted. But it's like, no, you have to try your hardest not to do that because we're reinforcing certain ideals that we're trying to push against. And then we don't know the reasons for why people are gaining weight, losing weight. I think the biggest thing about body positivity that people misunderstand, it's that like that health exists at every size, and true body positivity is a movement to like get adequate health care. Like people have also diluted totally what that industry is, and and being told just not to like lose weight. Like when I went to fertility for my son, it took significantly longer than it should have because I was first told like lose weight and come back because you need to lose weight. And I found I know. And so I took a few months off to try to lose weight. And did I lose weight? Absolutely not. Because even like my naturopath at the time was like, do not start dieting because you're going to disrupt your hormones and your fertility even more. And I found a doctor out of the UK on Instagram. It's like Fat Positive Fertility, I believe is her handle. And I reached out to her and I kind of shared my experience with her. I was digging into a lot of her content and her research. And I had by this point gone back to fertility and said like, listen, I didn't lose any weight and we're going to do the dang thing anyway. Like, let's get started. And my first round of letrozole, it didn't work. And her name is escaping me right now, but this Fat Positive Fertility said to me, all the studies show that plus size women over a certain BMI on letrozole, it is not very effective. She's like, however, it is done on the same dosaging that is given to straight sized bodies. So yes, does the research and even that your fertility doctor is giving you saying at your weight, research shows that this is not an effective way of like achieving a child. Yes. She's like, but what I want you to do is I want you to take this research paper and I want you to bring it back to your fertility and I want you to ask for an increased dosage of letrozole. So I went back. They were like, all right, we should move on to IUI or IVF. And I said, I want to do another round of just letrozole and I want the dosage increased. This is the research paper that I found. We just metabolize it faster. We have larger bodies. And I got pregnant that month with my son. And even when they called me after I found out I was pregnant to give me my numbers, they said my numbers were kind of low for my HCG than that they wanted, and I should prepare for a miscarriage. And I posted about it in my story, and this fat positivity fertility saw it. And she reached out and she said, first of all, you cannot tell with one set of blood work whether or not you're going to miscarry. You need 2 sets of blood work.
You need to compare.
Yes, that it's not doubling or tripling or it's gone down. And she goes, again, women in larger bodies often have lower levels of HCG. And it is not uncommon to see that. I have a 2-year-old. He did not miscarry. He fully survived his gestation. And it's crazy the amount of trauma that I experienced through my fertility journey because of weight stigma. And educated doctors on larger bodies. The amount of research that goes into women's bodies is very minimal compared to the research that's on men's bodies. And then on larger women's bodies and then larger Black women's bodies, it continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller. It's sad, but you have to become informed yourself and educate yourself so that you can advocate for yourself.
Yeah, so much frustration in that story. Like you said, research on women's health and I mean, like dosing. I think I saw something recently that like up until a certain point in the not so distant past, all dosing was based off of men. So like it's a whole like bag of worms that I think points to the systemic issues that lead and contribute to issues we may have with our bodies. Like it really, I think when we can understand things in this way and really get a bigger picture understanding of what's going on, it does open the door for compassion and self-compassion. And being able to understand the context is extremely important for that, because if we don't understand the context, it can feel just like another thing we're failing at. And it's like, I just should be able to be confident in my body. Like, why can't I just accept the way I am now? Why couldn't I accept myself when I was 16 and 130 pounds, right? Like whatever it is, like there can be so much blame there.
Yes. You literally hit the nail on the head because it doesn't serve us to strive for this perfection, because even, parts of like trying to, before I had my son, I created like way more content about my body and I talked way more about it because I was in that journey even more and I had the time. How little time you have as a parent to do anything is like mind blowing to me. But, when I think about even like getting so into what I thought was like the perfect idea of self-love was just like, I don't care. I'm just like fully accepting like my body as it was. But I was also ignoring a lot of health problems because it was like, well, it doesn't matter that I feel like crap or like this because I don't want to make any changes because I am super confident in who I am and like resting on that. And then when I was going through fertility is when I got diagnosed with a whole plethora of things because I had to get all my different levels tested. And I'm like, oh, like, this is why I feel like crap. So again, it's like we just have to develop an intimate relationship with ourselves and really try to focus more on like that feeling, like how do I feel? And if something is coming up that's consistent, like don't ignore it. Like don't be like, oh, well, it just means that I'm doing a really bad job at being confident. It could be that, we need to continue to explore like how I think about things, but also, is it a hormone related issue? Is it like a deficiency? Is it a chronic illness? Like we deserve to take care of ourselves too. So we can't let ourselves spiral into, well, I'm not being the best confident person now. So there's small actions. Being confident is like just putting that research paper down, advocating for myself, making sure that you're working with medical practitioners and you're creating your own support team. I think I'm doing my group fitness instructor certification right now. And in one of the modules I was listening to yesterday, it was like, okay, for example, for me with like dance, you may be an expert on that or on health or fitness or whatever, but your client is the expert on themselves. You are not
Mm-hmm.
an expert on your client, and you are there as a support to them. I had to really realize that, like, okay, you are my care team and I am your boss, which means that I can fire you. It means that I can
Yeah.
work with someone else. It means that if your philosophies aren't lining up, if you don't believe me, if you're reducing something to just my weight, or, you know, you make me feel uncomfortable, then that confidence is the confidence to say, like, I'm in charge and I'm going to make a change, and that we don't have to give up our power to all these different people.
Yes. Yes. To all of that. And we forget, I think we forget, or also just have been told for so long that that's not how it is. And so I love that. And I think that's a really great thing to walk away with. Before we wrap up the conversation, something I love asking guests is just how you care for yourself. And if there's anything you would say to moms to just make sure that they are taking care of themselves regularly.
Well, for me, dance has really been an important part. I love like any sort of group movement because movement helps so much with my mental state, my emotional state, my physical state, but doing it in community with other people and being able to connect and be social has been very changing for me. I started it's called Strut Niagara, my business, and I started it like honestly selfishly for myself because I knew that dance brought me joy, and being connected to people and showing my body like what it's capable of, that it's sexy, that it's sensual, that it's deserving, desirable, has been life-changing for me. And I'd say like just trying to lower my expectations. Like currently right now, like if anyone could see what I'm surrounded by, like there's a dustpan, there's like a grocery bag, there's toys, there's like breakfast is like literally sitting beside me on the table. And to take care of yourself, like you have to realize that you can't do it all. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't do it all at one time. There's, I think it was, oh, I can't remember her name actually, but she said in life, it's important to realize that some, like when we're juggling all these balls, some are glass and some are plastic, and the plastic ones, just let them drop. And my therapist said to me last week, she's like, Lindsay, right now you're, you know, gearing up for some things in your business. You're like working hard on creating some things. You started some new projects. That's why your house is a mess. And you can't do it all. And instead of
Mm-hmm.
looking at the mess and going, I'm failing as like someone who needs to keep it together, look at the mess and say, I have finite energy and the house is a disaster because I'm choosing to put my energy towards my business and my family right now. My husband and I actually this weekend, we have a little date night planned and we're creating a vision board for our family. And it's to serve as a reminder for both of us so that when, you know, I come home from dance and my husband hasn't cleaned up since dinner, or my husband comes home from work and I haven't cleaned up during the day because my son only goes to daycare part-time, we can look on the fridge at our vision board and go, the house is a mess. Yes. Is that triggering? Yes. But it's because we have certain goals for ourselves and our family. And right now, my time is better served being the best mom to my son and building my business to financially care for my family than picking up the toys for the
Mm-hmm.
umpteenth time that my son's just going to dump out again or cleaning up after dinner. And if someone wants to come over and judge my home, then they can leave. I'm only at this point in my life, I only want to like surround myself with women who are like, I don't care that your house is a disaster. I'm coming over and our kids are playing and we're having a coffee. Like that is the goal. So I think just, yeah, know that your energy is finite and water what needs watering. And the rest of it you can get to later. Yeah.
I love it as I drink my water.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Hydrate.
think all of that is right. Water yourself and pour into the things in your life that
Yes.
you're choosing to pour into. I
Yeah.
think that's such great advice and really applicable to anybody who's listening, that you can't do it all. And so you are making the decisions of what to do and where to pour the energy, and being intentional with those decisions is really important. Lindsay, where can listeners find you and what should they keep an eye out for?
So they can follow me on Instagram at Confidence with Linz, or if you're in the Niagara, Ontario region and you're interested in heels classes, you can follow Strut Niagara. And yeah, I have a lot of exciting new projects coming out, some different styles of dance classes that I'm launching. One is actually a prenatal dance class called Bump and Grind,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh.
Keep pregnant women with like gentle movement that builds your confidence. No heels for that one. And yeah, I am working on some projects that will teach other people to do what I do. So some business coaching tools for dancepreneurs and confidence coaches. So yeah, I'm very excited about all that.
Amazing. Well, I'll just say I wish that I was in the same area as you because I would love to take some heels classes in that way. It sounds like so much fun. Really awesome. Definitely recommend following Lindsay. She's a great follow on Instagram. Lots of amazing stuff. That's where I connected with her initially to do this episode, just after following her for a long time. So definitely check her out. All the links will be in the show notes for that. Thank you so much for being here, Lindsay. Thank you for just sharing your heart with us. Such an impactful, empowering episode.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had to like dust off the old podcasting skills. This is my first one back since I've had my son. So thank you for having me on.
Well, welcome back and thanks for sharing your voice. Glad you're here. And if you enjoyed this episode or any other episode of Worthy Mother podcast, I would so appreciate it if you would leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It really means a lot to me and it helps other moms who find the show know if it is a good fit for them to listen to as well. And with that, you are worthy, mama.